Hey, my name is Jonathan Leonardo, and this week on Internet Church, we're talking about victim mentality, how to not be afraid of big feelings, and just the general posture of gratitude. I'm excited for our concluding conversation with Dr. Savannah Williams. Here we go.
And so when we think of open-handedness, like it is this posture of being relaxed. And to be relaxed, you have to be in contact with what is happening internally. So like if we avoid it or push it down, that actually creates more of a closed hand experience. And then we feel tense. So being embodied and aware of our own inner experience is what then leads to that. And the other thing that I thought about too with gratitude is I read this book called A Thousand Gifts. She talked about the story of when Jesus feeds the 5,000 and how there were, the 5 loaves and 2 fishes and how right before Jesus prayed and he offered a prayer of thanks, and that is what turned that into enough. And so when we offer up our gratitude, it doesn't mean that suddenly what we have is so much prettier or like we get more of it. It's that we recognize, oh no, I've had enough from the beginning. And so that's what then moves us into a state of just being perpetually grateful, because we recognize that where we are is where we should be and what we have is what we should have. And it is more than enough to be who we are.
Yeah, I was taken aback by the prayers that I heard in The Chosen. Every time that they broke bread and prayed, it was, blessed are you, O God, King of the universe, for from you flows the fruit of the vine. Right? Blessed are you, O God, King of the universe, for from you comes the abundance of the fields. Right? And then just posture your heart. I think one of the things about gratitude is that it postures your heart as the receiver of good things, and that it creates a mindset that's good in gratitude, but it also creates a mindset of your correct relationship to the giver. I receive, he gives, right? If I give back to him, it's only because he gave first. So that gratitude sets that framework. So to say thank you, it's that you gave, right? And your God, I'm the human. Your creator, I'm creation. You're the gift giver, I receive. I give back because you gave, right? And that sort of the beneficence of love is practiced.
The feedback loop.
The
Positive
feedback loop. Listen, I got 2 things that I think I'd love to at least touch on before we wrap this up. And that would be 1, the idea of a victim mentality, right? And staying victimized. You made reference to that. I'd love to at least have a little bit about that. And then 2, we earlier discussed a little bit about stewarding our feelings well. But feelings aren't Lord. Just because I don't feel it doesn't mean I can't do it. Right? If you could speak maybe first to the victim one, and then we'll.
Yeah.
Or is that a whole nother hour and a half talk?
No. Well, maybe.
Yeah.
No, I think it's such a, I remember somebody one time at Internet Church mentioned the word submission. And I remember you saying like trigger word.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel about victim mentality is like trigger word.
Yeah, of course.
Because I think it's a really big temptation. It's really easy to be the victim. In the sense of, we're not talking about trauma. Let me just be very clear, right? Are we just talking about the victim mentality in general?
I talk about the victim mentality, but you blew my brain by saying that it's a temptation. Like,
my goodness.
It carries the path of least resistance.
100%. 100%.
Say
Yeah.
more.
Well, and it frames you as being powerless. And I just don't believe that is what we are. So if you are framing yourself as being a victim, then that is what you are and that is what you see, right? You're only looking for blue and that's all you're going to find.
Yeah.
And then on the flip side, it's kind of like a parallel conversation to the scarcity versus abundance mindset, right?
Yeah.
When you're sitting at the table as a victim, let's just say, and you're choosing that perspective,
Yeah.
But I think, and again, like this is kind of putting into context like therapy as well. What that can help you to do is to get up from that table and then sit in the different seats.
Yeah.
And see the different perspectives, or maybe even leave the room and look at what the room looks like from the outside, or observe the table.
No, this is powerful because you just mentioned saying that something that comes along with that mentality might be that we're powerless, but we always have the power of choice in how we see.
Oh my goodness.
So we're never without full power. Like you can, as long as you're living, you can choose to see one way or another, right? As long as you have cognitive ability.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. We have the choice. You have the choice. There's this book called The Choice Theory.
Yeah.
And it came with a lot of controversy when it came out, because one of his big things, I can't remember his name either. This is so bad. I remember all the titles and none of the authors.
No, I'll look him up for you.
He talked about how he does not use any sort of diagnosis. Like instead of saying like you have depression, he would use active form. So he would say you are depressing.
Yeah.
Or you are.
Oh, you are depressing.
Not like you're depressing, but
like
you're choosing to depress.
Yep. No, I hear
you are choosing to anxiety. It's not necessarily
trigger
words. Totally. No, really. I know. But also like I love it.
Yeah.
Because I so believe it. Like, I think it is so true. And a lot of people too, I know that there's going to be people who, when they hear that, think about like depression and how like there is a chemical imbalance in the brain. The actual amount, like the percentage of chemical imbalances in the brain as having caused depression is an incredibly low percent. So the majority of time, it is an approachable problem, like how you're.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying that the cases of depression that can be diagnosed via chemical imbalance are a lot smaller in relationship to the cohort of people who say they are depressed.
Yes.
The majority of those depressed cases
100%.
are because active present, you are depressing because you are.
Yes.
Not that you as a person are depressing, but that
you are choosing to depress.
Choosing to depress. Powerful. And are you choosing to depress? I would imagine that most would say it's unconscious. I mean, this is the circumstances of life are
100%.
That I don't have the scaffolding.
This is why I think therapy is so great. Yes, is because it's the process of uncovering that and coming to a place of being able to appreciate it, right? Because like to some extent that has been a defense mechanism, right? Like this is a tool that you have learned has gotten you to where you are. And so through the process of therapy, being able to discuss that and talk about it, be able to create a place where there's appreciation for how far that's gotten you. And then also acknowledge this isn't working for me anymore. So like, let's approach it differently.
Yeah, what I love about that is that it dovetails back into this idea of Christian therapy, right? Whether it's a Christian therapy or not, I definitely need a therapist who agrees with design so that if a therapist says I'm depressed and then connects me to a psychiatrist for medication, all the while it's actually that I am depressing, then it seems to be a little bit of a malpractice there. Let's approach it from maybe the depressing. If you do have the depression that's chemical, we can address that. But there's also this other alternative approach that might benefit you.
100%. Well, and even what we know from like evidence-based therapy, right? Like is never the best practice of therapy within the scope of chemical imbalance is both psychiatry and psychology playing a role.
Yep.
So, if that is what someone is dealing with, by all means, like get the help that you need. Yeah. And I think that there's a greater percentage that can use a perspective shift.
Yeah. No, that's powerful. And then the last thing we'll wrap up. The last one was about feelings and about the power of choice, because they'd all see, I'm telling you, for me, I think I try to be as best I can, try to get to the root bottom of things. And I think that the root bottom is something to do with scarcity and choice, like from way of perspective, more often than not. Right. Like, and again, this is my own thinking on things.
Yeah.
So that both these last pieces of the conversation where you have the feelings piece right now, and then the victim mentality sort of thing, that's rooted in scarcity and then not choosing to not see through scarcity so that you're actively depressing.
Yeah.
That has something to do with a view of scarcity and choice, exercised or not, right?
100%. So this is where, for me, like how I practice as a therapist is, I come at it from an acceptance and commitment therapy lens.
Yeah.
It's called ACT, and that tends to be how I practice. And it is a huge, like new movement, that incorporates a lot of different elements of therapy. But what I love the most about it is that you have a guiding light, which is your values.
Yeah.
And what it is that you want to pursue. And so obviously within Christendom, right, like we sort of have the list of values that like we can kind of just spit out, right? Like the fruits of the spirit or, you know, church and blah, blah, blah. But what is so helpful about that in how I practice is that it creates this very clarifying direction that we want to move in. So like for you mentioning, like noticing this scarcity and abundance mindset, it's helpful in knowing that, first of all, we don't need to be afraid of our feelings, right? And in fact, when we conjure up fear about our feelings, does the complete opposite. It is so unhelpful. And we have a tendency to believe that our feelings are on this spectrum, and like over here are really bad ones and over here are really good ones. And if I can just tip the scales so that I'm just feeling the good ones, it would be great. But what actually ends up happening is that we narrow our ability to experience anything. So we narrow our ability to feel really good feelings, and we narrow our ability to feel really bad feelings. And so the approach to that, which then we kind of talk about, there's so many, like the window of tolerance and how we can like expand our window of tolerance so that we're able to tolerate things that feel more overwhelming. But if we can get to this place where we're able to experience that full spectrum, right, then there isn't a fear, and we're able to sort of ride the wave, because we have this tendency of thinking, it's going to be so big and it's going to be so hard and it's going to be so overwhelming and I'm not going to make it through. And the reality is if we can just hold tight for like a minute, probably even less, we'll get through it. So first of all, if we can just get to a place where we're able to have contact with the present moment, have contact with our breath, be able to ride the wave of whatever that feeling or emotion is, and be able to get through it without placating it, right? Notice where the feeling is coming from, and then remind ourselves, okay, what is really true for me? Like what feels like the place that I want to pursue? Where am I wanting to move? And how can I acknowledge how I'm feeling? And then also pursue a values-based behavior. Then that helps to give us this like guiding light, so that even if we're feeling like meh about it or whatever, that we can know that we're ultimately pursuing what feels the most important, right? And then that brings us meaning, is that we're pursuing what is the most important to us regardless of feelings. So like you're saying, feelings aren't Lord. They're really great indicators, and they're really bad dictators.
That's right.
But they can be really, really helpful in giving us a clue into our experience. So we have to practice truly, like being in touch with our emotions and riding that wave, so that then we can move forward whole-bodied, like embodied, without being resentful or pushing down what our experience is, but still pursuing what's ultimately important.
Dr. Savannah Williams with the truth bombs. There it is. There it is. Well, listen, I know that I have been incredibly enriched by this time together, and I'm sure that people that are listening will be as well. And I think that with enough time, you probably have this baby, give it a few months, and then maybe sometime in 2025, we should do this again, because there's so much left to talk about. I know
you could talk forever about it.
And and I think we want to, and I think we're blessed by it, because it's so eye-opening to see how the simplicity of truth from the gospel lens can inform so much, but then how deep it can be. So it's simple, but it's super deep, and I want to travel all the avenues in the depth, right?
Yeah. Oh, no, I love that. And I love that you're approaching the conversation too, because I feel like it makes it palatable for people. And I think it's genuinely so important. I think when we're able to really be embodied and understand our inner experience, that we're then able to experience life as it was intended, and with the fullness of emotion and the fullness of feeling. And so I feel like, yeah, I just love it. I think it's great.
Awesome.
I'm excited about it.
Hey, so I hope you enjoyed that concluding portion of this conversation that we've had throughout the last few weeks. And just to let you know that the long form discussion is available at DTL, anywhere where you listen to Death to Life podcast. This is one of the most recent episodes, so you can check it out. But in light of this concluding conversation, I want to ask you, one, was there a little bit of a trigger when Dr. Savannah talked about the victim mentality? I know that moment stood out for me, and that when she said that it's a temptation, like that one was a whoa, I gotta let that one breathe. So I'd love to hear some of the feedback on that one. And then number two, just the idea of allowing ourselves to feel feelings and not be afraid of them. And like we always say, don't let them lead, but they need to be led. Like, feelings aren't Lord. They're terrible dictators, but they are good indicators. Are there feelings that we may fear feeling? This is what Dr. Savannah was talking about, these feelings that we might fear feeling, but we need to actually allow ourselves to feel them. So maybe you're willing to name some of those. So one, that really charged discussion aspect about victim mentality. And then number two, any feelings that we might be fearful of actually feeling. I look forward to hearing some of these insights on the other side.